Have you ever wondered if there was some magical part of you that you've been unable or afraid to access? Have you ever felt or been told you're crazy? Here's a thought to ponder. What if you're not? What if every imaginary friend, every letter to Santa Claus, every fairy or elf you saw as a child was your inner self reaching out to the spiritual world? What if your blocks are really a bridge? What if your wounds are really your windows? What if all your anxiety and your trauma are there to elevate you to something greater than yourself? I'm here to tell you, you're not crazy, you're connected. Hear from the rock stars of the New Age world about that moment when they stepped into their power and how you can step into yours too. Here on Crazy Connected with your host, Bridget LeRoy. Welcome to this episode of Crazy Connected. I'm your host, Bridget LeRoy. I have an amazing guest today that I know. I guess we've known each other for a couple of years, Dr. Scott Cairnes. Now, his doctorate is in international history from London School of Economics, but I know him from kind of more Hindu mythology, traveling to different temples, doing Vedic astrology, and all of these other amazing ways of kind of incorporating all of his knowledge of this world and other worlds. So welcome, Dr. Scott. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Bridget. It's a real honor to be here.
You are such a kind spirit, and I've been lucky enough to spend a couple of days with you, walking around different temples and learning about stuff. So your degree is international history. So tell me a little bit about like before Scott, like your childhood growing up. You traveled a lot around a lot with your family?
Yes, kind of up and down the Eastern Seaboard, and I have several interests. History, spiritual stuff. I'm a musician and a composer, and I was very lucky. All those things were encouraged. So I had a big love of the presidents and the American Revolution and the Civil Wars. So, we traveled to these, different places like Old Sturbridge Village, and Fredericksburg and Washington D.C. and New England and Canadian Maritimes, and it was great.
So when did you make the jump kind of across the ocean, the Indian Ocean, to your love and your incredibly deep knowledge about kind of Hindu deities, mythology, and customs?
Well, I think it started when I was very young, because I always felt that some of Christian philosophy and theology kind of had some holes in it. And I certainly was interested in this idea of karma. And, we have this in Christianity, this idea that Jesus died for our sins. So he's, taking on the karma of people. And, sorry, a little camera adjustment here. And, but I never believed in this basic Western idea that somehow we're all broken and we need to be fixed. I remember hearing that the first time about age 5 or 6. And so I remember talking to adults when I was a child about their point of view on things. And then when I was about 12, I came across some books on Eastern religions and Eastern philosophy at a couple of the local libraries. And that started to, expand my point of view and fill in the holes that I thought were missing in Western philosophy and Christian philosophy.
That is so fascinating. I just came off this amazing ecstatic chant week in Nosara, and Krishna Das was there.
Oh, nice.
And of course told this amazing story about the Maharishi when they were all young and at the Maharishi's feet, and how the Maharishi said, just meditate like Christ. And all the followers said, well, how do you mean meditate like Christ? And the Maharishi, who was moving around, got very, very quiet. And he got very still, and his eyes closed, and 2 tears came out of his eyes. And he said, Christ lost himself in pure love. And I thought that was a beautiful way of kind of a different take on maybe what some of us in the Judeo-Christian, or what we're raised with, and
Right.
that's a beautiful way of looking at it. So yeah, so tell me, I mean, so this show is crazy connected. Here you are expanding your mind, at 12 years old. What was the pushback like when you kind of started? Did you get a pushback? Because I know that you also have, you're a fixer, and you have these spiritual abilities and psychic abilities. And what was it like growing up, in this kind of family on the East Coast?
Yeah, it's just kind
What
of,
was the reaction?
suburban, kind of typical suburban middle class, childhood. I was very lucky. My mom is quite psychic, and she has extraordinary abilities. But her mom had even greater abilities, and we always called my mom's mother the Swami, because throughout her life she predicted world events before they happen. And she lived to be 90. She died 25 years ago, and she predicted certain things that are still coming to pass now. In 1965, she said that credit cards would be the ruination of this country. She said during the Summer of Love and the Sexual Revolution that everyone jumping in and out of beds, each other's beds, that there's going to be some sort of deadly disease that comes along. And then we had the AIDS epidemic. And so, she was kind of scary. There's a great story about her. She was 5, so this would have been about 1914. And in those days, children were supposed to be seen and not heard.
And not heard.
And so the kids played in one room, and my great-grandparents were very social, outgoing people, very politically involved, where they lived in Brooklyn. And towards the end of the evening, the children would be invited to sit with the adults, and you didn't speak unless you were spoken to. And my grandmother came in, and she went around to each of the adults and told each one what they were thinking and feeling, and what was going on with them. And everybody laughed, and, it really scared the hell out of all the adults. And so my great-grandmother, who was very psychic, her mother pulled her aside and said, listen, that's something we just kind of keep that in the family. We don't talk to other kids about it. Don't talk to other people about it. Because, there's always been a lot of persecution around all this for centuries.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, that's the crazy connected. That's what this show's about.
Yeah.
A lot of times it wasn't even when parents or grandparents would say that to a child with special abilities. They weren't saying, oh, you're crazy. They were saying, don't tell anybody because they'll put you away.
Right.
Or you will get persecuted. So you think that this was hereditary in your family, these abilities?
Definitely. All that Scottish and Irish blood, Scottish, Irish, and English blood, all the stuff about second sight. And, just real quick, there's actually another connection. Yeah. I come from this lineage, and my guru studied directly with the Maharishi. And he was there with Deepak Chopra when the Beatles were there. You couldn't see them, but he was taken by the Maharishi up into the Himalayas, and they were immersed in these cold wells with water, and the Maharishi would chant mantras all night, changing their consciousness.
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
So, and so you just expanded your knowledge on this. So, okay, we're going to jump around a little bit. Your website is drscottmethod.com. Tell me what the Dr. Scott method is. Does it kind of incorporate all of this?
Yeah, so there's 5 challenge areas in life. And these are the things that people go and see, the tarot reader about or the psychic about. Health, love, wealth, personal power, and spiritual power. Right, when one of these goes wrong, life is difficult. When 2 of them go wrong, things are tough. When 3 of them go wrong, things start getting very serious, and people start, not to sound morbid, but people start thinking about making an early exit, because these 5 things can be a source of great joy and wonder and passion in life, and they also can be a great source of, horrific pain and suffering. So I'm here to help relieve people of their pain and suffering, to help them with miracles in health, love, wealth, personal power and spiritual power. And if you're an atheist, that's okay. We can help you with personal power using some really cool techniques that have been borne out by neuroscience in the past 15, 20 years.
Well, I know this is probably a terrible example, but I used to bring my dog in for chiropractic, and it was like he didn't need to understand it. It helped him walk. Right. Do you know what I mean? He didn't need to believe in it. It just helped him. So sometimes I feel like, you don't have to believe in it for it to work. It's energy work, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So...
Yes, including, working on people from a distance. I've helped people with miracles. The lineage I come from is about helping people with miracles. I've helped people with miracles who family members ask me to do distant healing sessions from them. They don't even know my name and who I am, but their situation improved.
What do you define as a miracle?
I love what my guru says. We have everyday miracles. Everyday miracles, we have this technology where we're doing this broadcast now, which is extraordinary. I mean, this was, unthinkable, 30 years ago. We'd have to be in a television studio to do this. Or, have everything set up with cameras, and it would have been, quite a big deal and very expensive. Everyday miracles are, the fact that we can walk on our own power. We can breathe without an oxygen tank. Probably, like you and I, people listening to this broadcast, probably have a roof over their head. There's food in the cupboard. There's food in the fridge. We have heat and air conditioning. I mean, these are miracles too, especially compared to how life was or how life is for the vast majority of people on the planet. Miracles are divine intervention when a seemingly impossible situation and someone experiences miraculous healing, miraculous financial boon, a miraculous thing where the person they love has been I helped a couple with this, kind of teeter-tottering, well, I don't know, and then she said, I don't know, one client had, I don't know what you did, but last week he asked me to marry him, and they've been happily married for, that must be about 6-7 years now. He just needed a little push on the psychic plane. Right. That's white magic, not black magic. He was 98% of the way there. And it's like, all right, I'll clean up this for him and that for him. A little stuff on the soul level has to be cleaned up. And then he was ready and open, and he came to it himself. And then helping people with personal power to feel good, that's not based on ego. It's based on feeling your energy inside and increasing that energy inside naturally and organically.
Well, I have some other questions for you. Okay, so you say you have a guru, and having just come off this week where, one of the people stood up and asked Krishna Das, where do you find a guru today? I want a guru. And of course his answer was like, no, you don't. Like, you don't need to follow a guru. Mm-hmm. We are the guru. But I also understand the incredible, I don't understand it, but I envy the incredible joy that you must have felt meeting a walking saint, so to speak. That's what the gurus were. They are people who are incarnated in this lifetime, maybe incarnating somebody else who existed before. At least that's the belief. And to get but a lot of these people have now left this particular plane and not appointed a successor. So tell me a little bit about your guru and how you solidified that connection, how you knew. How did you know? Mm-hmm. How'd you know, Scott?
Yes, it was a lightning bolt experience. I was in England doing my PhD in international history, and to use those 5 things again, everything was going wrong. Girlfriend problems, my personal power feelings were way down, terrible problems with my professor. Oh, Mr. Cairnes, I don't think you're going to finish. I was like, well, I'm 5 years into this. What do you mean I'm not going to finish? I finished. Financial problems, money was running low, as is the case with PhD students. So personal power, health was the last domino that fell. Spiritually, I felt like I was in the wilderness for the first time in my life. Because people ask me, have you taken this course? Have you studied with that person? Have you read that book? And it's like, no. Everything I've done was a solo journey. Really, the only course I took was 35 years ago. I took 2 courses with Grandmaster Montauk Chia in
Hmm.
Taoist arts and Taoist philosophy and moving the
Oh,
energy
sure,
around the
like we
body.
all do.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
yeah, like we all do.
he was living on Long Island, but before that and
Really?
after that, I didn't take any other courses. So the last thing that went for me was health. And I found myself in the
Oh,
hospital in England. I had pneumonia. First, they thought I had a heart attack. It's like, oh, great job, Scott. You're 39 having a heart attack. You might as well knock 25 years off your life expectancy. And so I had
oh no.
pneumonia. So, and I took responsibility. It's like, okay, I put myself in the hospital. I'm having a healing crisis. I went down to the chapel at the hospital, got down on my knees, and said, God, send me a teacher, because I didn't know where to go next. I'd gone as far as I could go solo.
Right.
About 2 months later, I'm at one of these mind, body, spirit shops. And, all over the world, they have these, magazines, these mind, body, spirit free magazines, like we have here on Long Island or New York City or
Right.
anywhere else in the US or the UK or Europe.
Hmm.
Opened up to a random page. Of course, nothing's random. And there was a picture of my guru. And I said, that's my teacher. He was coming to London. That was May of 1999. And then I went to see him. He was there at an event. There's a big Mind Body Spirit Festival the last weekend in May in England. It's been going on since about 1970. And
Wow.
I was just about to go into the room to see him. And I was making a phone call at a payphone when there used to be payphones. And all of a sudden, I felt this huge, huge presence behind me. And I've had that experience on my own, but I never felt it from another person. And I turned around and he was smiling at me. And it was the complete
Wow.
and utter lightning bolt experience. I talked to one of his assistants. I met him the next day. I put together some events for him. And then in September of 1999, I had an incredible experience where he invited me over to his hotel room. There were two seats across from each other. He said, sit down. He closed his eyes. He put his middle finger on his third eye, and he said, close your eyes. And opened up my third eye. We went backwards and forwards in time. We went to different plane levels of existence. We met gods and goddesses. I could write a 500-page book about that 10-minute experience. It was completely life-changing. And so I said, well, this is my guru. And I'm very lucky because he's not a guru that demands you be attached at his hip the rest of your life and all the traditional Indian things with gurus. So it's been great. So he still appears to me in dreams. I ask him for help on the spiritual plane. He helps me out. I studied very intensely with him for about 10 years. And I'm a recognized spiritual master in the lineage, which is the South India Siddha lineage, the Tamil Siddha lineage, which is about helping people experience miracles and changing their karma.
Now I'm going to ask maybe what might be a difficult question, but you are, a white guy. How do you feel about what advice did your guru give you as far as um, passing this on? And believe me, I've had other guests on, like Ray Christ, who teaches the Andean Caro lineage. He's an American Greek guy. Um, but I'm just curious what your experience with that is, or what advice your guru or others in that lineage have given you as far as how to handle whatever pushback you might get. I'm not sure, or have you not?
The funny thing is, I haven't gotten too much pushback. There's been times I've gone into Hindu temples and I kind of get a, what's he doing here? And then there'll be certain people there, or certain priests who'll recognize my energy. And they'll come over and then I'll feel very, very welcomed there. One of the things my guru said that was very funny. He's very funny. He said if he hadn't done this, he had tried his hand at being a college professor. It wasn't for him. He said he would have probably done stand-up comedy. And he said that what I do needs a white face, he told me, because people are sick and tired of Indian gurus. So it was very funny.
That's
Very funny.
very similar to what the Kiros told Ray Christ when he was like, they were like, you need to teach this. He was like, how do I teach it? And they said, in English.
Hmm.
That was So I've had some really amazing experiences with Dr. Scott that I would like to share. You did our Vedic astrology charts for both me and Eric that were so different from the typical um, the typical kind of astrology that we're used to, because Vedic astrology is very different, right? Is it the Jriti? Is that what you did? Or is it the Vedic? But it said it had me being a Virgo instead of a Libra. So it kind of shifts a little bit, right?
It does, and for me, I had some resistance within myself when I had my Vedic chart done because I'm like a super fiery Sagittarian. I've got Sag in all the inner planets, and in the Western, my moon sign it was Aries, so everything's fire. Like the inner five planets are all fire. Interesting thing is, Dad's a Sag, and so are the two grandfathers. So it's funny I have Sag in four houses because all the men folk in the family are Sages. All the grandparents were fire signs. My sister's a fire sign, and my poor mom's an Aquarius, so she keeps the volcanoes from going off.
I was going to say she's got the bucket of water.
Yeah, that's right. She's ready to
on you
go.
guys.
The fire hose, perhaps. And so in Vedic, I was Pisces moon. Vedic astrology is really based on the moon sign as opposed to the sun sign. And the moon represents the mind and our thoughts and how we present ourselves to the world. So it was a very different way of looking at things. And also it's based on where you are on the planet when you were born and where you are today. And some say that makes it more accurate. I'm like my guru, I don't get into philosophical debates and stuff, but this is what the Vedic astrologers say. And the idea is our karma plays out according to where the planets are now compared to the time of our birth. So as we kind of move along, then different planets come into play, positive, negative, or neutral. So we want to get those positive planet neutrals working and neutral mojos working, and certainly the negative planetary influences want to at least get them to neutral, and then we can turn them positive.
Now, can I ask you on another subject now? You meditated for several days because I asked you to, and you gave me a name, a Hindi of Hindi origin. Do you have a name that you
Yes, I do.
you were gifted?
Yes.
Besides Dr. Scott?
Yes, it came to me, and it's Bhairava, also known as Kala Bhairava. And Kala Bhairava is a fierce form of Lord Shiva. His counterpart is a fierce form of the goddess Parvati or the goddess Shakti, and that's Kali. And Lord Kala Bhairava is the Lord of Time, so great for astrology. He's the demon killer, and he destroys negative energy and changes our karma. And so does the goddess Kali. And it's interesting because, some Hindus are very afraid of Kala and Kali, and they won't have pictures of them or statues of them at home. So it's interesting when I mention to, when I'm at a temple, people ask if I have a spiritual name. Some people kind of jump back. I'm like, oh, it's okay, because these are also... Kali and Kala might demand a lot from their devotees, but there's a lot of protection and a lot of love there. It's not just all about fire and brimstone.
It's amazing that you know all of this stuff. I'm so impressed, and I'm so interested, and I'm so hungry to learn more about it. I always tease my husband, like, I'm Shakti most of the time, but if you don't bring me my coffee, I'm Kali, So for people who don't know, it's the goddess Shakti. Whenever Shiva would kind of go off on his quests, she would become incredibly angry and turn into the goddess Kali with a necklace of men's heads around her neck and her tongue out, big sword. So I'm like, you better get that coffee, dude. You don't want to see Kali. So anyway, we have a lot of fun with that. But I do have to tell you, I mean, I really appreciate it. I'm starting to lean into the name that you came up with for me. And I was recently, like I said, with these amazing kind of rock stars of the ecstatic chant world. It was Krishna Das, Deva Premal and Miten, Jai Uttal, and this amazing couple Ekana, and they were from the Kundalini heritage. So it was this beautiful week, and I was talking. A lot of the people that I was with were talking about they had also been gifted names, and one of my new besties there, Amrita. I told her what my name was. I'm still not comfortable telling everybody in this room, but I told her what my name was. And it was the first time I had said that to someone, and she said, "Oh, you are absolutely that name. You have to absolutely
Cool.
lean into it." And I said, well, I'll get a sign maybe. And I went up to see the next, I literally said that to her. We went up to see the next performance, and they started with the chant to that goddess. And she and I both looked at each other, and it was like, holy crap, in the middle of it. And so I burst into tears. So I'm
Beautiful.
coming around.
Beautiful.
Coming around to embracing. You gave me a very, very powerful name, and I really appreciate it. So we're going to wrap up in about 3 minutes, but how can people get in touch with you? I mean, can you? I know that you fix in these 5 different areas, Dr. Scott Method, but if people just want to talk to you about like Vedic astrology, are you open to that as well? Because I think that's such a fascinating thing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. People can message me through Facebook. Matter of fact, I don't mind giving out my phone number. And my phone number, my personal phone number is 516 area code 606-3876. 516 area code 606-3876. Or you can get in touch with me through the website. It's, Dr. Scott at drscottmethod.com. And, we'll talk. We'll do a strategy session or whatever the latest lingo is for these things. And I always leave people, even if they don't study with me or have a session afterwards, it's free to speak to me. I always give them something powerful and practical. So the lineage is about spirituality has to be practical or it's a waste of time, right? So we want to have changes and the practical tools in those 5 areas of health, love, wealth, and power to get stuff done and to make this existence not just palatable, not just, vanilla, but to have an extraordinary life, to make things easier.
To bring joy into everything we do.
And bliss, yeah.
Well, Dr. Scott, thank you so much for coming on Crazy Connected.
Namaste.
Namaste. I'm so thrilled that we got a chance to reconnect. I can't wait for us to go to another temple together, and you and I will speak more, I'm sure.
Great experience, great show. I'm honored. Thank you so much. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you, Dr. Scott.
Blessings and light.